Today's morning brief honing in on earnings season and whether big tech can continue to be the market leader ahead of the start of those magnificent 7 results tomorrow. Let's bring in the author behind today's brief. We've got Yahoo Finance's Josh Schafer in studio with us. So, Josh, is it going to be all about those 7 names this earnings cycle still?
If you look at the S&P 500 projected earnings growth, right, it is going to be all about those 7 names, right? So, FactSet was out with data last Friday that showed that right now the Mag 7 are projected to grow earnings this quarter 18% year over year. Your 493, so take out NVIDIA, Apple, et cetera, Amazon. The S&P 500 is expected to grow earnings, those 493 are expected to grow earnings 0.1%. So from that perspective, this quarter, once again, when we're talking about S&P 500 earnings growth, to some effect, we're really just talking about the Mag 7. Now, we've been talking about this chart all year long, really, but there's going to be a catch-up, right? This 493 is going to start to catch up, and that has been sort of the case for the broadening trade. But I thought DataTrack's Nick Colas had a very interesting point saying, yes, the 493 are supposed to catch up, but the Mag 7 are still going to grow at about 19% over the next 4 quarters, compared to about 12% for the 493. When you think about that and you think about how reliable big tech earnings have been, he says that maybe makes the case for maybe it's still the big tech trade, especially when you look at the last 2 months of action. The big tech trade hasn't really necessarily been leading.
And even when you take a look, now Netflix is not in the Mag 7, but I bring that up and you brought it up in your piece just because it's the first look that we're really getting at big tech and the outperformance that we've seen, the run up that we saw prior to earnings, and then obviously this euphoria that's almost swept the street following earnings. Maybe that is a sign of some of that reaction that we could see from some of these Mag 7 names.
Yeah, I mean, you could basically, I think some people would argue maybe you should sub in Netflix instead of Tesla. It might be a better tech name at this point. But yeah, think about what we were talking about headed into Netflix earnings, right? Stock's up 50% this year already. This was prior to earnings. It's trading at an all-time high. Street estimates are pretty high. Can they possibly beat this? We're zooming in on the chart right now. You see that big hook up to the right. The stock took off after earnings because they, again, rose the bar. And I think that was part of the point I was making in this piece this morning is if you were thinking over the last 18 months what companies are going to continue to surprise to the upside, it's been these 7 companies. It's been big tech. So to make that argument, at least at this point in time, doesn't necessarily, at least to me, feel like that big of a reach. That's been the market story. If you told me that NVIDIA is going to come out and beat street estimates again, that's not necessarily shocking. The question is, with them trading at an all-time high right now, Apple's at an all-time high, is some of that maybe catch-up trade already starting to be baked in over the last week or two? I think maybe that's another side of this argument that people could start to make with it.
You can check out Josh's morning brief on yahoofinance.com and then, of course, subscribe to the newsletter as well. All right, Josh, great stuff. Thanks so much.